I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. I would note that all commissioners are present. We did meet in executive session to discuss matters of litigation, real estate, and personnel. I would ask for us all to rise to say Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, and I would ask that Commissioner Pine lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. First up on our agenda is petitions, complaints, suggestions from citizens. Do we have anybody that wishes to address the board tonight? I guess sandals qualify for service.
Got a collared shirt.
Collared shirt.
Commissioners, thank you, and thank you. I just wanted to let you know, first
For the record, could you please just
I'm
state
sorry,
your
yes,
name?
so John Dietrich, 2095 North Drive. Two things, really two things. So I know we're on the agenda here later for the modulars. I can speak now if you need me to speak at this point, but if you want me, if you need myself or anybody who's more informed that is here with me, we can speak at that time, which I would assume might be appropriate. But I did want to let you know, commissioners, that the school board, I've checked with, we are meeting Monday. We'll act on it formally, but and I meant to send you an email earlier today. We're gonna essentially reject the asphalt sidewalk and go ahead with a concrete. And again, I'll try to send you an email tomorrow. But
Okay.
if you want to, let UD know that's where we're going, so that they can. I know they're waiting on us to finalize submission. But we'll have Mr. Stallman is working up that bid process that we'll have to go through, and we'll come back to you and look for some of that funding that will be available, and put down a concrete sidewalk in front of the high school.
Okay.
So thank you. So I want to let you know that.
Yeah, and I think, in our discussions before, both among the board and everybody, the $50,000 is on the table.
Right.
It's given to the township in trust, but our whole intent all along was to get, some kind of sidewalk built in front of the schools. And so that money, with the concurrence of my fellow board members and with an agreement between the township and the school district, that money, it's my feeling anyway, it should be made available to offset any costs that you have with the sidewalk.
Yep. And again, we appreciate that. That's our understanding, and that's where we're headed, is for
Great.
for the concrete.
Great, good to hear.
All right.
Thanks, John.
And thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address the board tonight? Russ? No. Okay.
Every time.
Every night. All right, approval minutes from our June 14th regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And our June 28th workshop meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Recognitions and presentations. We have our 2017 audited financial statement. Mr. Kratzer?
Sure. Board members, we have representatives from SB and Company here. Sorry I didn't have an opportunity to say hello, but they're going to be presenting on the 2017 audited financial statement, so I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Monique Booker. I'm a partner with SB and Company. I have the pleasure of standing in for Chris Lehman and William Seymour, who are the engagement partners on Susquehanna Township, but I'm going to present the results of the audit. We did have an opportunity, or they had an opportunity, to meet with the Budget and Finance Committee already and walk through in detail.
And I think his commitment was to make it a 30-second presentation. I don't know if he
Oh,
passed
so
that
I'm
on to you or
already
not.
over? I don't know if you would like us to hand out the
No,
full
I'm kidding.
presentations that we walked the Budget and Finance Committee through, but we have completed the audit. We are planning to issue a clean on unmodified opinion, which says that the statements are properly stated in accordance with accounting standards. There were, we received full cooperation from management. In prior year, we have made recommendations on improvements to the internal control process. We did see significant improvements this year in the finance department, so wanted to make you aware with changes of personnel that process, that financial reporting process went much smoother this year. And just in summary, from a results this year, you will see that there was a decrease in net position, so that's your expenses exceeding your revenue, and that's primarily due to your OPEB liability, your other post-employment benefit. And right now, the accounting in your 2017 financial statements are based on your funding of that ARC, of that commitment. That will change next year. There is a change in accounting guidance that will cause that liability to increase significantly. So you will see a significant impact on your unrestricted net position. It's not a cash flow item, but it is an accounting principles item that will significantly impact your December 18 financial statement. So again, that's been discussed with the Budget and Finance Committee, but it's something that you should be aware of when you see the financial statements for the upcoming fiscal year. Okay. So that was my short and sweet presentation, but I can elaborate on anything additional that you would have us.
Mr. Kratzer or Mr. Sanderson, do you have any, or Jody or anybody else in the, Justin, anything you'd like to add?
My only thought is to say thank you for emphasizing what I think is the important part, that the township has closed the gap, received the clean, unmodified, and also has improved controls
Yes.
year over year, which were never bad, which never caused any problems with the audit, but whenever something improves, it's good to say thank you very much for recognizing it.
Yep, nope, absolutely. We follow up on that each year, so we want to make sure that we're sharing that information with you.
Quick question, if I might, just
Yes.
the increase in liability that you referred to, does that relate to the change in accounting standards, government accounting standards?
It does not. This past year increase was really just due to the increase in the annual requirement funding for your OPEB liability. That's not reflective of the change in accounting principle. It will be a much more significant increase in 2018 due to that change.
Thank you.
And also included in the documents that you have is the presentation, again, that was walked through in detail, but you also have the draft financial statements themselves. So we will finalize that once we have management's approval, which we expect to have shortly, and those will be issued in final available financial statements.
Anybody else have any questions or anything to add?
Just one thought, since we do have a lot to consider here, I would ask any member of the board to ask questions and put them in writing and submit them to Mr. Kratzer for any conversations that we might have in the future. Certainly, SB has always made themselves available, but they won't always be traveling here. So perhaps in the future, we could specify line items and page numbers and any other questions that might come to mind in the future.
And contact information is included in your document.
I was going
as
to
well.
ask you that. Are you saying that, did I ask this question before? Are you saying that we can't contact?
No, I just said we could,
You can.
but it would be better to funnel it through Mr. Kratzer.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that you feel comfortable, always feel free to reach
Yeah.
out to SB and company. The statement that's bound now is identical to the statement that was distributed as part of your materials prior to the meeting. So there's no fundamental change in terms of what you've been presented with today versus what you had an opportunity to review prior to the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. When does work start on the next audit? Or has it begun?
Probably soon.
Yeah,
Towards the end of this calendar.
never ending. Oh, we appreciate it.
Yep, you will.
Okay, reports of committees, Buildings and Grounds, Commissioner Rothrock.
Mr. President, I have no report.
Okay. Budget and Finance, Commissioner Sanderson.
Yes, briefly, since we have the budget in under discussions, negotiations, planning, all that underway, my only request is to ask the members of the board to
begin submitting questions about specific line items in the draft budget. That's why we have it so early. General discussions about revenues and expenditures are good, but we need specific requests to make any sort of plan. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, Mr. President. The Public Works Department report for the month of June. The Public Works Department patched potholes, repaired inlets, and replaced a pipe on Woodridge Drive in Ward 9. And 1,500 feet of sewer line was flushed and spot checked on Front Street in Lingostown area in Ward 1. Roadside grass mowing and street sweeping continues throughout the township. In Ward 3, Public Works personnel were extremely busy milling and patching the roadway in the 2300 block of Locust Lane, not to mention a tree removal at 25th Street and George Street. And as a reminder, the street sweeping schedule is posted on the township website. This ends my report, sir.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Health and Sanitation, Commissioner Robarczyk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next scheduled yard waste pickup by Penn Waste will take place on Saturday, July 21st. Please have your materials to the curb in the appropriate containers by 6 a.m. that morning. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Really quickly, Mr. President, I know it's not my report to give, but I did see Commissioner Robarczyk posted new guidelines for recycling as well. Penn Waste is asking residents to help get rid of recycling things that can't be recycled and really stick to things that can be. Like cardboard boxes, for example. I'm trying to think of some.
They haven't really changed what they're recycling. They're just asking people not to throw things in recycling.
That can't be recycled.
Right.
Yeah, so they're trying to make it more pure, I guess. Making sure that the things that can be recycled are what's going into the bins. So thank you for that reminder, Commissioner Robarczyk.
All right, thank you, too. Administration and Personnel, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, Mr. President. In executive session, we discussed a possible amendment to the employment management with our township manager. The amendment, if approved, will have no impact on our budget or any aspects of Mr. Kratser's job functions as a township manager. I would move that we recommend adjustment to the agreement be approved by this board.
Second.
Moved in second. Any comment? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Napper?
No, sir. That ends my report.
Thank you. Police, Commissioner Engel.
No report.
Okay, I see we're going to have a coffee with a cop day coming up here. Is that right, too? Would you want to talk about that, or save it for later?
No, I can address it now, Commissioner.
Okay. It's going to be in the 4th Ward, by the way.
It is.
That's why the plug. No, I'm just kidding.
It was actually an invitation from Starbucks at the marketplace at Susquehanna to host for 4 hours on July 28th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Coffee with Cops. So I'm going to ensure we have quite a few officers up there, and there'll be not only a vehicle on display, but some other goodies to display in the parking lot, and we're looking forward to it.
Great. I think it's a great service.
Are they
Absolutely.
giving out free coffee?
I can, Commissioner, absolutely. We'll make that happen.
You're on TV.
Yes.
Careful.
Did you just obligate?
I'll donate. I will donate a coffee to the commissioner.
Does Starbucks know about your contribution?
It's a one.
No,
I'll pay
I
for
love
mine, Chief.
Starbucks.
I think she was asking on behalf of constituents.
Oh, I don't know. I can't speak for Starbucks, nor would I.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Going back
And
to my
Chief
seat.
isn't going
Thank
to be
you.
on the hook for that bill.
No. Hey. Police and Fire, Commissioner Fleming.
Mr. President, the Public Safety Committee is meeting next week, and we'll get an assessment of where we are from the perspective of our volunteer fire department, and EMS, and Emergency Management Association. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Recreation, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Let's see. We have a scout, Michael Numai of Troop 23 has recently completed his Eagle Scout project by installing a solar-powered charging station at Edgemont Community Park. The charging station is located at the small pavilion and is able to charge 3 devices at one time. Scout Gabe Bollinger, also of Troop 23, completed his Eagle Scout project by building and installing a kiosk at Crown Point Park. Eagle Scout is the highest rank in scouting. To earn this designation, a scout must demonstrate excellence in leadership, service, and outdoor skills, and must have earned a minimum of 21 merit badges. In addition, candidates for Eagle Scout must plan, develop, and give leadership to others in a service project that benefits any school, community, organization, or religious institution. This project is thoroughly reviewed and certified by both local and national scouting authorities before the Eagle Scout Award is granted. Additionally, we continue to have day camp and the playground programs, which are open and will run through August 2nd and August 3rd, respectively. And that concludes my report.
Where do the scouts meet? Do you have an idea offhand where they're located?
Where scouts meet?
The Boy Scouts, the
Tree of
troop.
Life, is it Tree of Life?
I believe it is, Mr. President. I think it is Tree of
Is that
Life.
Troop 23? Is that
Uh,
their
Is
meeting
that Troop
spot?
23?
Again, I don't know the specifics, but I know there is a group at Tree of Life,
Yeah.
as you
In
said.
case anyone else was interested in joining the scouts. I'm not sure.
Do they sign up through the school, though? I was pointing at you, Superintendent. Okay, yeah, because
Oh,
there's
okay.
more than one.
Yeah, there are
Yeah, more than one troop. There's probably several, but they can sign up through Susquehanna Township.
We often provide that information for all of our students when it
That's
becomes
right.
available to us.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you. And let me,
Yeah, please.
should I acknowledge the superintendent of Susquehanna Township, Mr. Oz Anderson, our business manager, and we already said hi to our president of our school board. Hey, welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome all.
I never met you
Mr.
before.
Sanderson.
Welcome.
I have attended several Eagle Scout ceremonies at the Tree of Life Lutheran Church, and they're really cool. And I can only encourage young men to join.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is that it?
If I could just make one more mention relative to recreation, and that's
Sure.
the relative to the Veterans Park project.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's substantially complete at this point in terms of that project. But if you have not had an opportunity to go over and see the investment that was made in the new facilities that were installed there, they are just wonderful, and they're being heavily utilized by members of the community. So I just wanted to encourage each member of the board to go and see that, and then also any member of the public to partake in the investment that was made there at Veterans Park. So I just wanted to make mention of that. We will likely have at some point in the future some sort of dedication ceremony relative to the project. We're probably waiting until fall for that, so that will, more details will be coming on that issue.
Okay, thank you. All right, Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Commission met on June the 25th, and the main topics of discussion were the Sarah Lindenmuth and Thomas Holtzman School modular buildings that are being proposed in those projects, which we're going to talk about later. But they also looked at some draft ordinances and amendments, including bee and chicken keeping, which I was surprised to learn they get frequent inquiries about doing in Susquehanna Township. Open air markets and composting facilities, which were combined in a single amendment for some reason, but you'll be pleased to know the yard waste compost is only proposed to be in industrial zones. And this, again, these are just things we're looked at for us to kind of take a look at and comment on at the next meeting, so they're not really underway. I just thought the other commissioners might be interested in looking into them if it's an area of interest. There was also an amendment regarding elementary and secondary schools, which seemed to primarily revise property size, setbacks, and that type of thing. And a plan review and approval, some changes to that process, which would extend time limits a little bit and require a meeting with staff 12 days prior to the planning commission meeting. And Betsy and Mike, if I got anything wrong there, please let me know. These are just things that are being considered and looked at by the planning commission. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you.
If I, Mr. President, if I could just add one more thing on that
Sure.
issue as well. Some of the ordinances that the Commissioner had noted are a direct result of a partnership with Widener University Law School, which we have the dean and representatives from the school here today. So I just, it's kind of good that we're moving forward and you're seeing the work of some of your professors come to fruition potentially here. So it's a partnership that we value and one that we look at continuing to expand. So I just wanted to acknowledge that the dean was here
Thank you.
because some of this work product is coming directly out of that partnership. So
That's great, thank you. Good report, Commissioner. Bids and agreements, T.R. Stoner, General Contractor, Veterans Park, the aforementioned. Application for payment number 6.
If I can take that, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
As Mr. Kratzer indicated, the work is progressing very well at Veterans Park. The contractor is actually ahead of schedule. We would expect that within a couple weeks, the project would be completely done. And before you this evening is application for payment number 6 in the amount of $128,403.75. And we would recommend that the board approve that request for payment.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Did you get that, Janine? Okay. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And change order number 1, I thought we already had a change order, Mr. Gruber.
Not on this project. This is the first one. And just brief explanation. There was one area of the park that was essentially southwest of the tennis courts and west of the revised playground area, in which when the site began to be graded, there were some issues related to topography and grading. And at that point in time, we thought it best to be able to flatten the slope out and do some additional grading and drainage work and relocate a walkway in order to make the grade more accessible and also add a railing for ADA accessibility. And this is the only change order so far in this project. It's in the amount of $9,240, and I would recommend its approval.
So moved. Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any comment or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Ordinances and resolutions, subdivisions, and land development plans. Mr. Rohr.
Good evening. Sarah Linda Muth Elementary School. It's a final land development plan for the purpose of installing a modular classroom structure containing 8 additional classrooms. Property is located at 1201 North Progress Avenue. It is zoned R2 medium density residential. The plan was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission contingent on the following waivers: preliminary plan procedures, plan scale, paragraphs and survey-related data, existing resource and site impact analysis, resource impact and conservation district, monuments and markers. Planning Commission voted to deny the following waivers as submitted. However, the Planning Commission recommended sidewalks be installed within 1 year of the certificate of occupancy issuance per an agreement with the township. And they also recommended a modification of the request to allow a larger separation between the trees, street trees, per an agreement with the township.
Okay. Mr. Kratzer, do you want to describe, even in general terms, any of these before we take a vote on the waivers and conditions? For instance, the agreement that would give the time extension for the sidewalks.
Yeah, I'd be happy to go into a little bit more detail if no, that's fine relative to that. And the solicitor can jump in as well and provide some additional information. Again, as noted, the Planning Commission's recommendation for denial were not blanket denials. They were more modifications and accommodations to allow the district to continue to proceed forward with the project. Again, this is being driven, as they can speak to better than I, as a result of spatial concerns with the existing classroom capacities. So the thought was, again, as opposed to granting the request and providing a blanket waiver or denying the request in whole, the Planning Commission, again, is recommending some consideration to allow the district to proceed forward and providing them additional time to install these sidewalks. And the solicitor would work with the district, if the board is so inclined, to craft a developer's agreement which would obligate the construction. As Mr. Rohr said, the time period, the maximum time period would be 1 year after the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the modular units. Again, similarly on the street trees, it is not a blanket waiver. It's a modification of the requirement to just allow additional spacing. And there was a copy, and their consultant is here and can speak to that, but there was a copy of an exhibit that was showing the separation distances that they were looking for in terms of placement of street trees. Again, that could also be obligated in any type of developer agreement if the solicitor feels that's necessary. The only other thing relative to this issue was an issue that President Dietrich had raised, which is this issue relative to the Union Deposit Corporation's contribution. And we're going to be looking for some direction at this meeting as to whether the board is inclined as a body to extend that monetary contribution to the district to offset the cost associated with the sidewalk. Again, that would also be wrapped into that, probably the same developer's agreement, I would imagine, if possible. Is that?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so at this point, we would entertain a motion to accept the waiver determinations as put forth by the Planning Commission, as recommended by the Planning Commission, with the entering the developers agreement that would, among other things, memorialize the understandings between the township and the school district on the timing of the sidewalk construction and the disposition of the funds being held in trust for this purpose from Union Deposit Corporation to assist in sidewalk construction. Is that correct? Is that an accurate?
I believe that's an accurate description of it. Yes, Mr. President.
Okay.
Move to approve the waivers.
That's what I said. Okay. It's been moved and seconded.
Yeah. Oh, did you ask yet? Does anybody have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do. So maybe help me to understand why we're saying we're going to take money and put it, I guess, like in an escrow for the sidewalks so they can do them 1 year later. If you got the money now, why aren't we doing the sidewalks now?
I think it's just a function of timing to a certain extent. I don't think the district is saying necessarily that they will take the entire year, and they can speak to that issue.
Can I speak to that a little bit? I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and there's particularly at Sarah Lindenbooth, I believe there's a highway occupancy permit that has to be obtained. So there's that whole process. The idea is to try to get these modular units ready for the school year, which is going to be next month. And there didn't seem to be enough time to get the sidewalk portion done. And so we initially talked about making it 6 months and then realized 6 months from August is February, and that's not the time of year you're going to put in a sidewalk. So we decided, well, let's make it a year, and that'll give them the spring and summer building season to get it done.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the reason that it was delayed, mostly because of the requirement to try to get those buildings occupied by August, and not having enough time to get the sidewalk done in that period of time. Right.
Okay. Can I ask one of the representatives from the school district? I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I'm gonna ask anyway. The modulars, is that a long-term fix to I guess running out of space, or?
I can speak to that. It's not a long-term.
Could you come to the mic,
Yes.
please?
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure other parents are looking and asking the same question.
Yes, good evening. It is not a long-term solution. We do have a facilities planning committee that is looking at more long-term solutions in terms of renovations, possible acquisition of properties within the district to potentially build a new site. So we're exploring a number of options at this point, but currently we are over capacity. And we need to find space for those students within the current school year until the board and the administration decides what the long-term plan is going to be. So this is temporary.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Will this be up and running for the beginning of school year?
That is the goal, and that is why we are here.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Can we ask that you come back in the future and let us know how you're making out? Plus the community, because the cameras are here, so
Absolutely.
if you would, please.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful.
Yes. Be happy to do that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure the chief will provide the coffee.
I will be following up
Chief
with him on the
Starbucks.
coffee. Yes.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Dr. Willis. Those
Any
are my
other questions?
questions. No, those are my questions.
Any others?
Thank you. Thank you.
Questions,
Bob.
comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
Planning Commission also attached the following conditions for approval of the plan, and that is to satisfy the remaining HRG, Dauphin County, and Township staff comments.
All right, is there a motion to approve the plan with the provisos as stated by Mr. Rohr?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Thomas Holtzman Elementary School, very similar situation. Final land development plan for the purpose of installing a modular classroom containing 4 additional classrooms. It's located at 1910 Lingelstown Road, zoned business office residential. Plan was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission contingent on the following waivers: preliminary plan procedures, paragraphs and survey-related data, existing resource and site impact analysis, resource impact and conservation district, monuments and markers, general requirements for stormwater management. Planning Commission voted to deny the following waivers as submitted. However, Planning Commission recommended that the sidewalks be installed within 1 year of certificate of occupancy issuance as per agreement with the township. And in street trees, the Planning Commission recommended a modification of the request to allow a larger separation between the trees per an agreement with the township.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the waivers and the conditional denial as submitted, pretty much along the lines of the last motion that was made?
So moved.
That would
Identical,
include the agreement between the township and the school district as to the timing of the sidewalk placement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is that right, Mr. Wendauer?
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
President.
All right, good. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Lastly, the Planning Commission attached the following conditions: satisfy remaining HRG, Dauphin County, and Township staff comments.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the plan with the proviso as stated by Mr. Rohr concerning HRG, county and township comments. Any comments? Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Well, we have finished with your project. Is there anything you'd like to say or address? Discuss? Oh, thank you. And good luck. I know we have a little bit over a month to get those up and running, and we're happy to be of assistance in any way that we can.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You guys are welcome to stay. You don't have to leave.
The funds come, yet to come.
Answer email.
Thanks, Austin. Unfinished business, is there any?
There is no unfinished business, Mr. President.
Reports, Mr. Kratzer, do you have any?
Yeah, I have 2 items that I wanted to bring to the board's attention. Item 1 is relates to authorization to advertise for sale 3 vehicles that are being transitioned out of the fleet, and then also quite an old forklift that's no longer being utilized. So again, we're seeking authorization to advertise via municipal bid, and part of the disposition, they would be brought back to you for action at a subsequent meeting.
Move to approve the sale of the vehicles?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments, questions?
What vehicles are they?
Sure. It's a 2004 Ford Crown Victoria, 2008 Ford Crown Victoria, and then a 2014 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor. Both of the Ford Crown Victorias were old police vehicles that were transitioned for utilization as part of the fire company's fleets. Again, when there's additional transition from the police department, they continue to pass through. So 2 vehicles came out of the police fleet that in turn went to the fire companies. So these are excess vehicles that now can be disposed of. The other one, in terms of the 2014, and Rob, I don't know if you can speak to that, but I think it's been an issue that there's been some issues from a mechanical perspective on that vehicle. Rather than invest additional proceeds, it was also one of the vehicles that was replaced as part of this year's budget cycle. The recommendation was to just dispose of that. And then the forklift is a forklift from 1975 that was being used by the emergency vehicle technician in the back here in the public safety building, and he was able to obtain an additional forklift through the federal surplus program. So that is an excess piece of equipment at this point.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Okay, any other questions?
Just a comment. Would this be the time to bring up about the sewer vehicle, sewer authority with the camera vehicle?
Sure. I mean, if you want to, to create awareness amongst the, you want me to
Sure, if you would, sir.
make mention of that? Sure. So at the last, the sewer authority had an existing camera van that was in need of replacement, mostly in terms of the mechanical parts within, not in terms of the vehicle, but in terms of the camera equipment that was within the vehicle. There was a request that was made at the authority meeting on Tuesday for the transfer of that asset from the authority to the township for use by the police department as a crime scene vehicle. And the authority board granted that request. So I think the commissioner wants to point out that, the continued cooperation between these two entities that are serving the same people, and this is another example of the value of the cooperative effort that you put in place and the authority put in place relative to management agreement. So we were happy that we were able to transfer that asset from one department to another department. It'll result in a much better situation in terms of the service that vehicle is providing, but is also, obviously a cost-effective option. So just like there's been transition internally with the fleet, here's another example of transition from the authority's fleet to the township's fleet. So we very much thank the authority for their cooperation and consideration of that request. So.
Thank you, Manager Prince. Sorry, Sean.
It's fine, still my.
Was that your sewer
That's
authority?
that was his report.
That was his report?
That was my report.
Yeah, the only other detail I can add is that it had 9,000 miles on that van, and now the police department's going to have essentially a brand-new functioning van at necessarily no cost, functionally no cost, which is savings of many tens of thousands of dollars to taxpayers.
Yeah, the existing van, the crime scene van, Rob, I think it had in excess of 100,000 miles, is that correct?
57,000.
So 157,000 miles. So it is a good trade. What the condition of the trade was that any proceeds that we generate from the sale of the van would go back to the authority as opposed to into township coffers. And then obviously there's internal camera components that are not functional at this point, but somebody may find value in those. And any proceeds relative to that would also go back to the authority. But otherwise, as the commissioner notes, it's a functioning van with very low mileage that's saved considerable dollars to the township.
Mrs. Urban, there is a motion, right?
Yeah.
And a second.
No, not yet for this.
I think I made that.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Sean seconded.
That was to authorize the sale of the vehicles.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no action that needs to be taken relative to the other. I think Commissioner Napper was just wanting that for informational purposes. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
I mean, on the
Well, on the original.
We never voted the
issue.
original motion.
Right.
Correct. I think she was looking whether there was a motion and second on this issue relative to the authority transfer, and there's no need for any
No,
action on that.
But
so.
there is on the original.
Yes.
Authorize the disposition of property.
Yes.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any comment? Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries.
Great.
Is that it?
The other item is we're looking for authorization to advertise a bid for the purchase of unleaded gasoline and diesel fuel.
Is there a motion in that regard?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That is all, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chief, do you have anything? Thank you. Mr. Windauer, do you have anything tonight?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. School Board Liaison, Commissioner Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have a report, given the business that we undertook earlier this evening with the modular building plans on the sites of Sarah Linda Booth and Thomas Holtzman. Again, I want to just recognize the presence once again of John Dietrich, School Board President, and School Board Member Jesse Gant, and open up the floor for them to say anything if they have anything.
The only thing I would like to mention, and that is to thank Mr. Kratzer, and if I'm missing anybody, Dave, the Hannah Education Foundation for the school, as well as the alumni, they had a joint fundraising effort, and that was the golf outing tournament, not this past weekend, but the 2 weekends previous. But anyhow, I know I saw Mr. Kratzer, so thank you for your time and your support. And I know some of the board commissioners have participated in that past, so thank you for your past participation. I just want to mention that was a successful event.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
Who
Thanks
won?
for mentioning that, Mr. President.
Justin Fleming, that's why I didn't mention
No.
it.
That's why I brought it up.
It was
President
not my
Dietrich
group.
did not mention Justin Fleming because Justin Fleming was the victor in that tournament.
With a score of 16 under.
Yeah, no, I wish. My group had a decent day, but it wasn't, I don't think we were in contention.
Understood.
But, yeah, thanks, that was an excellent event.
All right. Very good. Authority, Mr. Sanderson.
No, that was it. Thank you.
Mr. Napper already covered you, huh?
Mr. Napper already covered.
Sorry, sir.
That's all right.
Indian Wheels, Commissioner Barczyk?
No report, thank you.
Okay. How about Shade Tree?
No, thank you.
Mr. President, on the issue of Shade Tree, I know we have a vacancy. I'd like to nominate a person to fill that vacancy. Julie Labor of Latchmere Manor, which, by the way, is a beautiful tree-lined community within the 5th Ward, has expressed an interest in that vacancy, and I would like to nominate Julie Labor to fill the vacancy in the Shade Tree Commission.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Barczyk. Any questions or comments on the beautiful 5th Ward?
I'd like to thank Commissioner Pine for seeking out a volunteer. Appreciate it.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Parks and Recreation, Commissioner Johnson?
No report.
Okay. And Communications, no report. When's the newsletter coming out, Commissioner?
It is mid to late October, Mr. President.
All right, new business. Boards and commissions, Shade Tree Commission we covered. Anything else?
The only item relative to vacancies is we did receive word that Tom Berry has resigned from the zoning hearing board, and at some point the board will have to consider a replacement for Mr. Berry in that capacity. So I believe Mr. Berry served for quite some time, so we obviously thank him for his service on that board.
I do have new business.
Well, we do have an alternate on the zoning hearing board, Mr. Manning, but he's indicated to Mr. Sanderson that he's not interested in stepping up to the full-time appointment. So we will need to find a new member of the board. Yes.
I have, recently the Pennsylvania legislature has passed a law that allows municipalities, townships, to create energy efficiency programs which encourage economic development. And it's brand new. It's just been passed in the most recent weeks. And I have shared some of this information with members of the board. And I've asked Mr. Kratzer and our Economic Development Director, Betsy, to prepare some presentation for us at the most available opportunity, so that perhaps at the second meeting of the month, we will have some further information to read and understand. It doesn't cost anything. There's no increased program that requires us to do anything to zoning or anything like that. From a very high level, I just wanted to let the entire board know that this might be an excellent opportunity for us to be among the first in the Commonwealth to take advantage of a law that has been enacted in more than 33 states, plus the District of Columbia, and give Susquehanna Township an economic edge to surrounding municipalities. If we can continue to attract business, or at least encourage the business that is located in Susquehanna Township to stay, then I think it certainly would help our long-term budget prospects and economic development goals, and keep Susquehanna Township a place where people want to live, work, and play. So I'm looking forward to that in the future.
Great. Thank you. Next under new business is Dauphin County Local Share Municipal Grant Program. It's that time of year again. Mr. Kratzer, do you want to take it from there?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And we do have representatives from both of the entities that have expressed an interest or expressed a request for you to consider serving as a co-applicant. Again, that's a requirement for some of these. Well, it's a requirement for nonprofit entities for purposes of accessing the funds. So there was information regarding two requests that we'd received, one from Pop's House and then one from Widener University Law School. I believe we have Shelby. Is that Shelby Kearney is here? Shelby is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Pop's House. So Shelby, if you would come forward, she can explain the request better than I.
Thank you so much for having me this evening. I am Shelby Kearney, the CEO and founder of Pop's House. Pop's House is a 501c3 nonprofit housing facility for homeless veterans. We provide all-inclusive housing and services for veterans. We have 3 locations. We have one on Park Street in Allison Hill, one on Logan Street, Uptown, and we just recently closed on the Robin M. Jackson Veterans Center, which is in Allison Hill as well. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. I'd like to think that Pop's House is special and different because we try to get to the heart of what a veteran needs. During intake, we asked, besides housing, what else do you need? Our very first client, Troy, who walked through the doors of Pop's House, was found sleeping in his car at truck stops, not because he didn't have a job. He had 2 jobs, but he lived an hour away and he could not commute between the 2 jobs and his family, so they were estranged. So during intake, I asked him, what can we do for you besides house you? He said, I want my family back. I said, I got it. This is what we'll do. We'll create this environment for you and your family on your days off. Have them come stay with you. We'll cook dinners. You'll cook dinners. You'll be a wonderful husband to your wife. You'll be a great dad to your children. By the end of that year, Troy had saved enough money to get his family back to buy 2 houses side by side, one for himself and one to be a source of help to someone else. When I recently caught up with Troy, he not only still had those 2 houses, he bought the 2 lots next to the 2 houses and the house up the street. I was like, Troy, this is unheard of. How are you doing this? He said, it's that one bill concept. Pop's House has this one bill concept. We take all the bills and reduce them down to one single payment instead of having a multiples of a bunch of bills, because we take the stress off of the veteran having to decide, am I going to eat today or am I going to heat my house today? Am I going to pay the gas bill or the electric bill? We take that stress off of them so they can pay that one bill and then figure out how to get themselves from homelessness and never go back. So I think that we're different. I don't know. I'll let you guys choose. I'm here today to ask for co-applicant sponsorship on the gaming grant. Like I said, we just recently closed on the Robin M. Jackson Veteran Center. Pop's House purchased it for the tune of $300,000, 100% financing. $250,000 came from, was loaned through the Community First Fund. $50,000 was a loan through the Dauphin County Small Business Loan. I personally guaranteed it. I need to pay this back as quickly as possible. So we will be asking for $70,000 for the gaming grant. $50,000 will go back to Community First Fund, and $20,000 would go to the small business loan. We also purchased the business, which is the Robin M. Jackson Veterans Center, which is also a 501c3, and we do the same type of work there. And we've only owned it for 2 weeks. And originally we were going to expand and put a meeting room, a conference room, and fitness center. But as I'm walking through getting acclimated, the lights are always on. There are switches are missing. We need motion detectors. The lights are on 24 hours a day. The veterans can't even sleep. They put tape and paper and towels and just to keep the light out. We need to change that. There's limited lighting outside. There's a huge parking lot. When you pull up at night, nothing comes on. So we need to put lighting outside. So we will be asking for, I don't have my glasses on, $12,600 for the interior and exterior lighting. And then also, most of the, I'd say 95% of the veterans that live at the Robin M. Jackson Veterans Center is physically challenged. We have doorknobs. They can barely turn the doorknobs. So they're challenged there, and then they keep losing their keys. So I'm getting calls in the middle of the night because they lost their key. So we want to transition to keyless entry so they can just choose a simple code to get into their room. So we won't have to keep changing the locks, replacing keys, and that's to the tune of $3,000, I think that says $80. Thank you. Have any questions?
Where's
Good
the?
job, good job.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Where's the? I think I just saw this recently on TV where they
Yes.
cut the ribbon on this. Okay.
No, we didn't cut the ribbon yet. I think you're talking about Juanita. Cram,
You're right.
the 21 unit?
Yes.
No, this is different.
Totally different. Okay.
Totally different,
Where's the
but-
Jackson
but-
House located?
We're partners with them. 316 Carlisle Street. You know where the Hamilton Health Center is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's up the street and around the corner.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on this little street that I didn't even know existed. But you should come by for it too. It's beautiful.
Very good.
Two things.
Yes, ma'am.
First, let me disclose that I am a member of the Robert M. Jackson Veteran Center. I sit on the board of directors, so let me disclose that. How you doing, Shelby? But
Hi.
I was a little confused about the amount of money
okay.
that you were requesting. How much?
Two separate applications.
Right.
Okay.
One is for Pop's House, $70,000.
Gotcha.
The other one is the Robert M. Jackson Veteran Center, which is 15,000, whatever that
680.
number is, and I can't really see.
15,680.
Thank you. So it's two different. So I'm
Okay.
asking for sponsorship for both.
For both.
Both, two separate.
Okay.
So, and you have to make separate applications then?
Yes.
To the county? Okay.
Yes, I have to make that clear because one person said one thing, somebody else says something else. I have to speak to George Connor again to figure that part out. But I think the plan is to have two separate applications. So do I need to come back again as Robin M. Jackson Veteran Center to request? Or is this good enough?
I don't think it's a joint request.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So just to give the commissioner some additional detail in terms of timeframes and so forth, I know you've been through this a number of times, but these two are the only two that at this point have expressed a request for us to be a co-applicant. So that's number one. So, the thought, at least internally, is to review these applications on this meeting and then your meeting potentially on the 26th. Because we're not an immediately contiguous municipality, we actually have to submit a request to the county. So even though we're a co-applicant with these entities, if you're so inclined, we have to have sponsorship from Dauphin County. So those requests need to be to Dauphin County by August the 1st. So again, just to keep that in mind. And then ultimately, the deadline is September the 4th of this year. The only other thing I would note is that both of these entities, you had to establish a policy for external entities requesting co-applicant status. Both of these entities have complied with that by virtue of the material that's in your packet. So, just some additional detail in terms of time frame.
Thank you. Thank you. And Widener University is also here.
Shelby, we'll be sure we'll.
First, I am really excited to be here to meet with the commissioners. I think, as a practical matter, there's not been enough contact between the law school and the township, and I think we've made some great strides. We had a terrific meeting a year ago with the manager. We talked about the program on sustainability regulations. I wanted to thank Chief Martin. He spent the day with us 3 months ago, helping us with our security, and was very effective in helping us deal with the concerns about active shooters. The township fire department has come at least twice over the last year, and we really value the partnership. We wanted to recognize one of our most illustrious alums, Solicitor Wendauer here. He's terrific. He did very, very well at the law school. So thank you very much. Regardless of how we come out on the application, we look forward to being better citizens here in the township and looking for opportunities to cooperate and work with all of you on this.
It's been a pleasure to work with you as well, Dean. I just want to express that, and I appreciate your commitment to continue to bolster the relationship between the two entities. So thank
we're
you.
very grateful. We get terrific service, and I'm not sure we've reciprocated like we should have in the past. So thank you very much. We're very excited about this. There's almost unlimited demand for legal services for veterans, and there's been a tremendous issue with finding representation for them. We've spent the last 2 years at the law school. I have my consultant here, Corinna Wilson, and I have been developing and working on making Widener Law School more veteran-friendly and a place that can serve veterans. As I mentioned, a big hole has been that the Veterans Legal Clinic that we had 6 or 7 years ago was closed and moved over to our sister school in Delaware. And what we're looking to do now is to start the Veterans Clinic again. What I would call leverage of having a full-time attorney on campus is extraordinary when you combine them with the student body that we have. We estimate that this attorney would probably be supervising 8 to 10 students, can handle up to 100 cases. And the kinds of cases, interestingly enough, there's sort of 2 different types of problems veterans have. They have benefit problems, discharge upgrades, things like that. And then probably even more serious are issues dealing with housing and finances, bankruptcies. Custody tends to be a big issue, all kinds of family law issues. And we've been trying to move this forward at the law school. And so we see, we have a full-time legal clinic, as many of you are aware. We'd welcome, if you have constituents that would meet our poverty guidelines, they can't make more than 140% of the poverty line. And if they meet those income requirements, the law school has basically family law, financial kinds of help, landlord-tenant right now, and we'd suggest they send them over to the law school to see if we can help them with their different legal problems. This one in particular would be focused on reaching out to veterans. It'd be housed in the legal clinic that we already have on campus, and so there's no physical costs or capital costs involved with bringing on an additional attorney. And your colleagues at the DMVA and up at Fort Town Indian Gap and throughout the Commonwealth would be grateful if we can get this Veterans Legal Clinic established once again. Personnel costs are always high. We estimate that, including benefits, that it'd be $120,000 a year to support that full-time attorney. Again, with the leverage of the law students helping this attorney, we could serve up to 80 to 100 clients at any one time as we're working forward. The other issue that the other position that I'm just as excited about is bringing on what we call our director of our Veterans Center. And this particular individual would basically serve two purposes. One would be to work with our veteran students who often bring, some of them anyway, bring additional problems that have come about from serving their country. From time to time, we lose students that we shouldn't be losing because they, we had a Marine that was in the National Guard that I'm pretty sure had some opioid problems from pain medicines and things like that, and we just didn't have the resources to help him on a different level. And we see this from time to time, and we believe that bringing in an individual to help specifically with our veteran students, right now they make up about 10% of our population. Right now we have 20 students that are veterans. The other role, which I'm very excited about, is we would like to see the law school become almost a hub for the Susquehanna Township community and surrounding communities for veterans, where we would serve as a resource, a legal resource sort of on two levels. One, we could help these veterans that are coming in for legal services find the social services that they need and direct them into the community. And then we would and then also serve as a resource for these different volunteer groups as well, where we could provide legal services to the groups themselves that are reaching out. The Pops House was so interesting. My guess is there are issues that you could probably use some help with, and we've thought about how could we reach out and help strengthen these organizations that are out doing other kinds of work. So we're very excited about this. The law school is very active in the veterans community here in Susquehanna and in Dauphin County, and we'd appreciate your support. I'm happy to answer any questions about what we're doing and how we're trying to help the veteran community here.
I have a question does the law school ever offer a volunteer service or a clinic where it's the attorneys are volunteering their service to produce wills, power attorneys, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a
It usually is done throughout a county.
Yeah, and we have there's one particular day we call it Wills for Warriors.
That's it.
Get out.
Yes, and we
Wills for Heroes.
Wills for Heroes. Thank you. I apologize. I show up and take pictures, but they don't trust me to actually do the documentation. But as Mark mentioned, it's a terrific program, and it's surprising the number of people coming in out of the community, policemen, firemen, veterans that come in to get that kind of assistance. And we've been doing.
It would be great to forward that information to the township
terrific
as
suggestion. Yeah, and because we'd welcome. They're always looking for people to come in and take advantage of these.
For our firemen and police and veterans.
Yeah, so it's a very actually sophisticated day. The students are well trained, and a lot of volunteer lawyers come in to help with the program. So.
So I do have a question, just some clarification. It sounds like you all are trying to do an awesome thing over here at Widener. I wasn't clear. Are you looking for funding to help fund a position or several positions or?
Yeah, no, terrific question. We're requesting funding for two positions.
Two positions, okay.
The clinician, quite frankly, is the most important. The clinician as in the attorney that would provide services to the veterans that would come in. And again, the interesting thing is that we continue to get requests from throughout not only Susquehanna Township, but the region wanting a place where they can send their veterans to receive the legal help that they need. The second position would be an individual, again, who'd be doing two things. One, he'd be working with the students themselves, and he'd also be working with the community veterans groups to not only to refer as a veteran. I firmly believe that if you don't solve a veteran's legal problems, you can't solve his social problems. You can't solve his social problems unless you're solving his legal problems at the same time. And we're hoping that this particular position could help the veteran find both. Now, we would not be providing the social care or the housing that Pop's House does, for example, but we could serve as a connector.
Right,
in
like a
way
resource
to-
center.
And a resource, we've had community meetings at the law school where we've brought in different groups that are serving veterans, and with someone there full-time, I think we could create some real energy and do some good in the community that way.
Well, thank you.
And what will you be asking the county for? What amount of dollars?
Well, right now, it's a lot of money. It's $240,000 is what we're requesting. Personnel, a trained attorney comes very expensive. Mark's not in that range, of course, but inappropriate.
Mark said that's very low, so.
But I think as the township is aware, this is a personnel problem that we've got. We have the bricks and mortar, we've got the facility in place, but we need two positions to help us with this. And so that's what the request is. We've added some overhead and other items onto it as well that we could use to round out our program of providing veterans education and also providing education to the community about veterans and the military.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be here, and we look forward to further interaction with the township. So,
Thank you, Dean.
Mr. Kratzer, I see on here township requests. Did you want to discuss those, or?
Yeah, there was just a series of requests that, again, just as folks are coming before you and you're considering those requests, I wanted to just not necessarily have you take action on any of this, but just be aware of some of the things that are being discussed internally within the township as potential applications. I noted this in an email to you. But some of the things that we're looking at this point, one of the potentials use of some of these funds is for debt reduction. Two projects come to mind relative to that issue. One is the Uptown Infrastructure Improvement Project, which again was a project that was funded through use of the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank program. Rather significant debt service on an annual basis, $492,000, for example, in 2019. Again, that's a significant investment that's being made in that first ward. That financing period is 10 years in terms of the amortization, so it's a compression of $5 million basically in a 10-year period. So we're talking about significant debt service that's going each year to that project. And then on the fire side, this was something that the commissioners, county commissioners had both funded in terms of construction, but then also funded one round of debt reduction for the public safety building expansion project. Again, 2019 debt service is about $96,000 on that. And then we heard a couple meetings ago, there was a request for consideration of gap financing for the squad purchase for Progress. If you recall, there was a $50,000 gap there. So that's another potential idea, potential application for us. And then to kind of perhaps follow the lead of the district relative to the sidewalk installation on the frontage of Thomas Holtzman, to potentially look at sidewalk installation along the frontage of our building as well. That's been talked about as a potential. So those are four potential applications that if you want to give some thought to, again, we're not asking for any action on any of those at this point. We do have our pre-application meeting scheduled with the county for July the 17th, which is next week, in which we'll express each of those to try to get some preliminary feedback from the staff that's staffing the Gaming Advisory Board. But those are some ideas that came to mind. I had mentioned from a staff perspective, to the extent that we can focus on applications that alleviate some of the pressures on our general operating fund or general fund. If we're prioritizing applications, I think that's really where we need to go. Not to downplay any of the other applications, but that's kind of an initial thought. So again, not looking for any action. We can continue the conversation, but just wanted to mention those 4 ideas are being floated at this point internally. Any feedback that you have at this point would be fine. And then if there's any other ideas that you have, please don't hesitate to communicate those as well. So.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I have a question. So, Mr. Kratzer, the loan for the infrastructure project, is that the loan through the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank?
It is, yes.
Was that at 0.5%?
Yes.
So my thought is we'd want to pay off the debt that's at a higher interest rate rather than if we had our choice.
We could
mean,
potentially, that's not a bad point.
Yeah, I agree with the concept of paying off debt, but I would think we'd want to go for a grant for the project or the debt that has the higher interest rate.
Yeah, I think the thought was that, obviously the county has already supported that project through the infrastructure bank. The issue is not so much the debt services, the interest is not the issue. The issue is the principal amount is such a significant amount on.
Right, I understand, but if we got $100,000, say, if you put $100,000, it doesn't matter. It's going to, reduce our payments that year, regardless of which loan it goes towards.
True, exactly. Yep.
But having, myself being an observer of the success of applicants that go in, it tends to favor, projects like that, DCIB. And we could try for other ones, but, just noticing over the years, there's no guidance saying, this debt reduction.
The other thing was the fact that it's a specific project that can be pointed to, which is already county supported, whereas the other, you don't have a significant amount of outstanding debt issues on the township side.
Right.
The 2012 general obligation debt that you've issued, that's been spent over a multitude of projects. I mean, including, I think initially the purpose was for the Uptown, or at least one of the purposes was the project Uptown.
Right.
So just in terms of, to Commissioner President Lynch's point, I mean, to articulate a compelling application may be more difficult on that debt issue because there's not it's been spent on so many different projects, I guess.
Okay.
But we can absolutely
that certainly does make sense.
look at that. To your point, I mean, that yes, just in your personal life, you pay off the debt with the highest interest rate.
Right,
yes.
but there's other considerations. I understand.
Mr.
Thanks for pointing
Mr. President,
that out.
the other point on that very good topic is relieving pressure on the budget, and that has been certainly a long-term discussion among all the members of this board, looking for any and every method to lower our initial costs in every line item. And this is a specific line item that, as I mentioned earlier, we can identify. All the line items in the budget, as every member of the board is aware, are up for negotiation and discussion. And I think as a matter of discrete analysis, this is a very good example of finding a specific method of helping the budget.
Well said. All right, anything else, Mr. Kratzer?
Nothing else. And again, if there's other ideas or thoughts or projects that you want us to look at, please don't hesitate to communicate those, and I'm sure we'll continue this conversation at a future meeting.
Times are running out.
Yeah.
I think this year we're more ahead of the curve than we have been since the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah,
it's a crunch.
I would say that, but I would caution that what happens is folks go in for pre-application meetings and they end up being referred to you. So to the extent that we've tried to communicate that we want to use these July meetings as the basis for evaluating these requests, I would not be surprised if on July 26th, I say there's 2 right now, that you'll end up with a host of other folks that are looking for a co-applicant. So.
All righty. Commissioner comments. Anybody wish to comment?
Mr. President,
Go ahead, Mr. Pine.
if I may, I just want to, a couple of mentions, a couple of thanks, really. One is in the Fifth Ward, we've noticed wonderful progress on the sidewalk on Union Deposit Road, and I want to thank the township engineer and HRG for oversight of that project. And it looks, I know there was talk about the requirement of substantial completion in October, but here we are just a few weeks in, and they're making great progress. So.
They're actually way ahead of schedule. They've mobilized a lot of crews, and right as of today, they're about 50% complete.
I was going to say, I thought maybe they're halfway done. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
In addition, Mr. President, I'd like to just express my thanks to Tom Berry. I know Tom and his wife Betty and good township residents. Unfortunately, I think they're moving from the township, but for his service on the zoning hearing board. And I had an opportunity actually once to appear before Tom on behalf of a constituent business. We didn't prevail, but he was very fair, and I appreciate all the time he put into his service on the zoning hearing board over the years.
Where?
They're there.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yes, Mr. President, I just have a quick reminder for residents on the issue of fireworks. Recently, the Pennsylvania General Assembly and Governor Wolf passed legislation authorizing new types of fireworks in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So I just want to say generally, to those who are setting off fireworks, please use caution. Please do so responsibly. Please make sure you have, water handy or any other fire suppression method handy when you are setting off fireworks. But the second thing I want to say is just to remind people that just because that law is in place, it doesn't exempt anyone from complying with any existing ordinances that the township may have, specifically the noise ordinance. So just want to remind residents that the noise ordinance is in effect from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. on a daily basis. And I've heard things out of, in my home. Chief, there may be additional reports that have come in this year more than others. So I just wanted to remind residents of that and put that out there as well. Have a good time, enjoy yourself, but please be safe and please comply with all township ordinances and our noise ordinance specifically if you do choose to set off fireworks. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. President.
Anybody else? Before we pay some bills?
Mr. President, I make the motion to adopt the report of bills paid in the amount of $417,751.61.
Yes, it is. It's all relative.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn. Motion carries. I don't think we should adjourn. Second.
Let's talk.
It's been seconded. Is there any comment on this motion?
You know what, I think,
Yeah, let's
I
talk
know,
it
right?
through.
Sure.
I know, I think we get that motion out a little too quick. We need to take a little bit of time.
Do you really want to do that? Yeah.
That's because you want to make the motion.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're out of here.
Steve.